All right, we're asked to find the domain of this function f of x equals the square root of negative 3x minus 5. Let's take a quick second and just talk about what it means to have a domain. Domain for a function of real numbers are the set of values that can be plugged in for the independent variable, in this case, x. How I always think of this is you should be able to plug in any number you want. The issue is we have a few math rules with real numbers that we can't break. Let's look at an example. If I plug in negative 10 into this function, what I'll get out is the square root of negative 3 times negative 10 minus 5, which will simplify down to the square root of 30 minus 5, which gets me the square root of 25, which equals 5. So what that showed me is that when I plug in negative 10 into this function, it gives me out a 5. Okay, so what we'd say is negative 10 is in the domain of this function. It gave me out a real result with no issues. Let's try this with a positive 10. If I plug in a positive 10 into this function, what I'll get is the square root of negative 3 times 10 minus 5 equals the square root of negative 30 minus 5 equals the square root of negative 35. Now this is an issue because I can't take the square root of negative numbers when I'm dealing with real numbers right here. If we're dealing with complex or imaginary numbers, we'd have no issues here. So what we would say is x equals 10 is not in the domain. Now we could spend hours finding all of the values that work and don't work, but an easier way of doing this is saying, well, what we need is we need this expression under the radical to be bigger than or equal to 0, or non-negative is another way of saying that. So what we'll do is simply set up an inequality to find that. When will negative 3x minus 5 be bigger than or equal to 0? Add 5 to both sides, get negative 3x is bigger than or equal to 5. Divide by negative 3 to get x is less than or equal to negative 5/3. A little trick there is don't forget that when we divide by a negative, which was this step, we flip that inequality sign. So what this is telling us, these are the numbers that will work, that will make sure that expression outputs something bigger than or equal to 0. Or another way of writing this would be an interval notation, would be from negative infinity up to negative 5/3, including negative 5/3, and never including the infinity into that same. And again, both of these are the domain, one in inequality and one in interval notation.